Nick?
Yeah, he is.
Take it in, marinate in what that looks like for just a second, and then tell me, what was your biggest takeaway here?
Well, I'm sure my biggest takeaway was the same as the audience's looking at that graphic of 10 guys. You're like, oh, look at that. Not a single skinny-necked fella up there. But my other biggest takeaway was this. Our long national nightmare is finally over. The denialism, the outright falsehood of the last few years that had not only Patrick Mahomes not as the best player in the league, but not as a top 3 player in the league. It is finally over. And Patrick Mahomes has taken his rightful spot at number 1, and I imagine he will stay there for the next conservatively 12 to 18 years. My other takeaway was I am owed quite a few apologies because when I did my top 10 and I had the audacity, the unmitigated gall, as Chris Broussard would say, to have Tom Brady at 10, I was pilloried for it. But I had Tom Brady at 10 with a slightly different top 10. I didn't have TJ Watt on the list. I didn't have Devontae Adams on the list, and I didn't have Josh Allen on the list. So I had Tom Brady ahead of everybody else. That's my top 10. On the NFL's top 10, they have Brady essentially where I do. They have him at 7. But they also have him ahead of Josh Allen the way I did, ahead of TJ Watt the way I did. Not this absurdity that Tom Brady's better than Aaron Rodgers, the obvious lie that he's better than Patrick Mahomes. So those are my 2 takeaways are about the 2 quarterbacks that played in the final game of the season, and I know by mentioning that game I'm setting Coach up perfectly, but that the NFL list has Brady about right, and they have Mahomes finally exactly where he deserves to be, Coach.
Well, the nice thing about this award for Patrick Mahomes is hopefully it'll take the sting off of losing the Super Bowl, and that ideally will help propel him into the season. But when you look at this list, and unfortunately, like you, some people can't recognize greatness and they can't recognize success, or they don't want to. Brad Seeley, our old special teams coach, used to say, "Why do you have to blow out my candle to make yours shine brighter?" And I think sometimes that's what people do with Tom Brady is they're just blowing out the candle because they want theirs to shine a little bit brighter. I think anytime you look at a list like this, you have to look at the impact, not just the player has on the team from a physical standpoint or from his actual play, but the way he makes people play around him. And I agree with you, Patrick Mahomes is in the top of that list. But when you look at the impact that Tom had at a new organization and the things that he was able to do in that context, it's undeniable that he was the best player next year. Now, maybe in this coming year, you're saying, well, he's almost 100 years old. How could he possibly do it again? And that may take something off of your projection for what he can and can't do. But we've all learned year in and year out, don't bet against Tom Brady. And we've learned that to some degree with Patrick Mahomes, with the exception of last year and some of the other playoff games that he got knocked out of.
I'm with Coach
Twice.
Nick. All right, look, I'm with you, Nick, on this. Pat Mahomes is the best player in the league. All right, they got that right. And the players were a little bit better than you on Tom Brady, but they got that wrong too. I would not have said this a year ago, but I'm going to say it now. I would have Tom Brady ranked ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. Now, if you want to put Aaron Donald number 2, I'm fine because you want a defensive guy. He has a huge impact defensively. That's fine. But I am putting Brady 3 and Aaron Rodgers 4 on this list. And as Coach said, it's about impact. Yeah, in the regular season, is Aaron Rodgers going to be better? He's going to have better numbers and all that? Sure. Okay. But when it comes down to the games and the moments that matter the most, Tom Brady is simply better than Aaron Rodgers. Even still, at 43 last year, he was better. And I know you can talk about the second half interceptions and all that. And if you look at the box score of the NF, hold on, but he built the big lead. All right. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers, he's 1-4 in the NFC title games. All right. He's lost his last 4 straight, the only player ever to do that. All right, and you look at the box score of the last 2, San Francisco 2 years ago, Tampa Bay last year, and you'll think, oh, look, 300 some odd yards. He played well. No, because in the first half, when the game was really decided in both of those times, Aaron Rodgers was a no-show, down 27-0 to San Francisco before he starts punishing the prevent soft defense, and down big to Tampa Bay last year, 28-10, I believe it was, and then he rallies.
Yep.
All right, Rodgers needs to be better in those first halves when the game is being decided to a large degree. So because of these big moments, the intangibles, the leadership, I'll even go this far. On that play where at third down at the goal line, right, when Rodgers doesn't run for the touchdown, instead tries a hard throw across his body, Brady would have made the right decision, maybe even tried to run. As bad as he is at that, he would have made the right decision. And then I think he would have even said to the young Matt LaFleur, hold on, we need to go for this.
See, that's
instead
interesting.
of, or at least think about it. At least Rodgers had the clout to go to LaFleur and say, hold up, coach, let's at least look at this thing. Think about this. He didn't do it. Those are the intangibles that I think make Brady better than Aaron Rodgers, even at 44.
So I agree with that part, Broussard. I don't know if Tom Brady would have done like the old 9-yard run to the corner. Would have been awesome and would have cemented his legacy like Brady the runner. But I bet he would have just like, you know what I bet he would have? Made the throw. Nick, I still think Brady should be either 2 or 3. I like Aaron Donald. I'm not going to say anything bad about Aaron Donald. We saw when Aaron Donald had that rib injury and they lost to the Packers in the playoffs. We were like, oh, this team can't really do much without Aaron Donald. So we know how important he is to that whole unit. And then, you start throwing the ball around. Jalen Ramsey becomes less effective. So he's like a force multiplier. And if he's not there, it's the opposite. My question is this. Sure. Do you think that this survey is a little bit flawed because a lot of Tom Brady's sort of impact is felt within the locker room? Like we've seen that sort of Super Bowl video, and the guys are like, Tom Brady gave the best speech before the Super Bowl, and we knew that we were going to go out there and win. And the other guys don't see it in the NFL. We know that, like, we're not worried about Tampa coming out, slow or soft or, sort of resting on their laurels because, as Coach says, Tom Brady will keep everybody there. But it's within that locker room, and maybe it doesn't permeate throughout all the other locker rooms like maybe how Aaron Donald may.
No, I think that is why he's in the top 10. This survey is not overlooking that. It is including that, I would argue, maybe to slightly too large of an extent. Brady's measurables and his numbers are not a top 10 player in the league and have not been for a number of years. But his coach will mention correctly, but he keeps winning. So why is that? Is there, some good fortune, some good luck, and a lot of help from the officials? Of course. But there's also that je ne sais quoi Bradyism that does seem to work and rub off on his teammates. So last year, Tom Brady had worse numbers and from a measurable standpoint is far worse than Josh Allen, right? But nobody on this panel, and not the players, think it would have Allen rated higher than Brady. So we are factoring in, and it's not like Allen's team was terrible. They got to the AFC Championship game. So, we are including that. But that in and of itself cannot... Tim Duncan, his final championship with the Spurs, was still a really good player. And his leadership was unquestionably important. But you couldn't say he was the best player in the league because he wasn't. And so so I'm giving Brady credit. I had him 10th. The players had him 7th. But to have him 1, come on. He's not 1. He's not 2. He's not 3.
Well, what else is happening on this list? Don't 2 of those quarterbacks have an offensive player that's also on the top 10 in this list? Does Tom have one of those players? Yeah. I mean, you look at this list, the 2 other quarterbacks have players that are on the top, offensive players that are on the top 10 in this list. You think that helps them? Do you think that affects their statistics? Do you think that has any impact on it? But Tom doesn't. And that's my whole point is he makes people around him better. Mm-hmm. He takes a group that was most of them had come out of retirement. Somebody didn't want him, couldn't play for another team because of off the field issues. He brings that group together and is able to create something special in an environment that hadn't been special in forever.
That's all true. What's also true is while Brady doesn't have anyone else in the top 10, the Bucs have more players in the top 100, 8, than any other team in the league, and Brady's got 4 teammates in the top 30. So I'm not going to let us revisionist history, the Bucs were a sad sack bunch of nobodies. You have Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, you brought in Antonio Brown, you got Scotty Tuati Miller, you have 3 tight ends who can play, you have 2 running backs who can play, you have an exceptional defensive coordinator, a great defensive front. You have all these things. So it wasn't Brady and the Bad News Bears that won that Super Bowl. It was Brady with Ndamukong Suh repeatedly punching Patrick Mahomes in the face on the football field that won that Super Bowl. So, we got to be fair there, Jenna.
I don't think it's revisionist history. Kelsey and Adams are both rated ahead of Brady.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.